So, good afternoon. So, I think we are meeting second time, so there is no need of introduction. So, I can directly start from where I stopped last time. That is, so we started discussing about research ethics. I mean, today it's a continuation. Like in the last talk, I discussed different types of research misconduct, like what we really call it as research misconduct, like fabrication or falsification of data, plagiarism, problematic data presentation, failure to obtain the ethical approval, inappropriate claim of authorship, duplicate publication, and undisclosed conflict of interest. And we discussed like each part of this, like what are these different points. And today we'll discuss what is scope, and we also discuss what is scope and what are the guidelines. I mean, COPE it's a committee on publication ethics. It's a non-profit association organization which will decide. I mean, this organization will include all the authors, editors, because I mean, if you remember from my last talk, so normally the first author is blamed for all this research misconduct, but I also discussed like we can't complain only about the first author, because publication is a team effort. It includes a lot of people like a first author and many co-authors and the corresponding author and the reviewers. So that is why COPE has association of all the authors and all the editors from the different publication, like there is different journals, and that makes a committee on the publication ethics, and they will decide, and all the members will decide. I mean, as a member, I can also suggest them like how we can improve the publication, all those things. So if it is really good suggestion, they will take it and in a meeting, and they will have a regular committee meeting, and they will decide whether we can include these points in this guidelines or regulations. So that is what COPE is doing. But the question is like, can we really classify this misconduct into two parts? Like according to them, we can classify, or I can divide them into two parts, that is honest error and misconduct. What is honest error and misconduct? Like misconduct is a real misconduct, but honest error sometimes can be neglected, even though if there is some committee on checking this misconduct. If it is honest error, they can escape, like even the authors can escape from these things. So let's see what are these honest error. So the first one is errors in the sampler data. Sometimes like during data collection, we might not be able to collect all the data. Sometimes we miss some of the data. So it could also make some sort of misconcept or misconclusion in the paper. So in such cases, if the committee can see like there are errors in the sample or data collection, such complaint can also considered as honest error. I mean, the authors can be to some extent they can escape from the punishment. I mean, I'll come to the real punishment, because today I think I'm really warning you people like what is misconduct, and I'm going to give some case studies, and you will not believe how people are punished for their misconduct. Okay. So then there is something called skewed statistical analysis. Again, this is another problem, because most of us are not statistical specialists. I mean, we take help from some other people, like or sometimes if we don't get anyone, so then we try to do it ourselves, like by online or something. So in such cases also the authors can get escape from the punishment. So it doesn't mean that we can do this, but these are all considered as honest errors. I mean, the punishment will be a little bit less. So inaccuracies or unverifiable information, I mean, sometimes the paper might have some of this information. In such cases also committee can give less punishment. So irreproducibility, that is sometimes the data cannot be reproduced due to because some of the experiment can work only in some lab because of the environment, all those things. In such cases also it can be, it's not that it has to be reproducible, but sometimes it can also not reproducible. In such cases also committee can consider little bit consideration. And redundant publication, that is discovery that some aspect have already been published. Sometimes this is also another problem, like if people try to publish, sometimes in a hurry, what people do is like, if you need two papers before submission of thesis, what people do is they make two papers from the same data and submit it to two journals. So this is also I mean, it's not good, but sometimes it can be, because sometimes some of the journals take ages to publish, because I have some journals take 6 months to 1 year, but the student and also the guides, they are not impatient enough to wait for that. So what they do is they submit same data to another journal, so that they'll think that whichever comes first, we can accept it. But such cases, it's not good, but sometimes people do that in a hurry. Then disputes over authorship attribution, that is, sometimes people also complain to journals saying that some data from this paper belongs to me, because if they have all the data, the raw data, they can also complain to the journal. So all these cases are considered as the honest error, and sometimes if the committee if they want to help the first author and the corresponding author, so they can give less punishment. But of course it's not good. But I'll just give you one example for the honest error here. So this is one of the recent publication. It was retracted actually. This paper was retracted. But if you can see here, what they did is they just use the same image here. I don't know whether you can see it, but at least what I'm saying is this image, and they also use the same image. That's the exact same image. They used it here, but of course the another lab complained to the journal, and there was a committee and checking all this misconduct, and finally they come to conclusion that the author explained, they justified that it was happened due to some errors. So in such cases, the paper was retracted, but the person was not punished. Both people were not punished, but paper was retracted, and maybe they can give a simple 3 months of suspension or something. Faculty can be suspended for 3 months or something. So this is honest error. But if you look at this one, we'll go back to this part, that is misconduct. What is misconduct? So honest error, I hope it is clear. Honest error is clear. So misconduct is real misconduct. So this is one thing is undisclosed conflict of interest. That is, normally we have to disclose all our interests, like how we are getting funding, all those things. And second one, that is the plagiarism, that is, or self-plagiarism. That is another very important point, that is we are not supposed to do it. So that is why this comes under misconduct. And there is something called salami slicing. So this is another very nice name, that is salami slicing is using the same data set to publish multiple studies, like using the same data and use it in different images or different figures to publish different concept, like same data but different concept. That is what we call it as salami slicing. And the another important point, that is data fabrication or the manipulation. This is one of the most punished misconduct. And next one is lack of adherence to the ethical protocols. So this is also very important when we are doing the biological experiment. We also always have to take the ethical clearance for all the animal experiments, especially people who are working in the biological experiment, only for those animals where ethical clearance is really necessary. Because some animals you don't need the ethical clearance, but some of the animals you need the ethical clearance. In such cases, you have to always take the ethical clearance. Otherwise, once it is published, if someone say that these experiments are done without any ethical clearance, so that paper can also get retracted. So this is also very big misconduct, because you are doing in the animal model. And this again, I told you that duplicate submission to different journals at the same time. So this is also considered as misconduct. I'll give you another example here. What we call it as misconduct here. So there are two images here, and this figure is coming from one journal called Science. Science is one of the top journal which is having around impact factor of around 40. So you can imagine it's such a big paper. And this image is coming from another big journal called Cell, which is also having around 40 impact factor. But look at the image. Now this image and this images are same. That means with the one image, they are getting two papers here. So this is actually considered as misconduct, because this they are doing purposely. This is not by mistake, because if there are two different studies, you can't mix the data, isn't it? Maybe the first case, in the case of honest error, maybe sometime when you are copy pasting these images, you can do it in the same figure. But if you consider two journal, so that means it is really they are doing it purposely. So look at here, like two journals with almost 80 impact factor with the same image, and they are concluding different hypotheses here. So that is what we considered as real misconduct. So this is a mind difference. I hope you can see the difference. That is the honest error and the real misconduct. So this is what we see like. So then let's see like what is this FFP research misconduct. So there is something called FFP research misconduct. So this misconduct is always punishable, because whenever people find this type of research misconduct, that is always punishable. That is FFP. FFP is nothing but fabrication, falsification and plagiarism. If people are doing this type of misconduct, they are always punished. So what are these FFP research misconduct? So of course, why people do it? We already discussed these things in the last session. That is forced to publish more or forced to publish 2, okay? Because at least minimum 2 for the submission of PhD, because this is mandatory in most of the universities. So at least forced to publish 2 paper or forced to publish more paper. So who are all involved here? Students, researchers, professional employees and the lab technician. Sometimes we also give this experiment to this lab technician and we force them, because it's not that we want the result. We don't tell them you have to do it properly, we just tell them we need the result. In such cases also, sometimes lab technicians also involved, but sometimes they are not aware of the actual consequences of this result. So they just do it, and this fellow, the person who is actually telling, that person will tell that, do this experiment, I need this result. So that is what the problem with the technician, because so they just follow what the boss says or the PhD students say. So that is why students, researchers, professional employees and lab technicians. So professional employees means it could be faculties, and lab technicians are involved in such things. So this is plagiarism. I think you already heard a lot of talk about, a lot of information about plagiarism. This is just like a copy paste. So we just either copy the information. Some people do this copy paste, like take the entire paragraph and paste it somewhere in their thesis, or even, I'm not talking only about your publication. You are not supposed to do it in your PhD thesis also, because PhD thesis also goes for online. That is Shodh Ganga. Like everything is now online. People can look at your thesis and they can find the plagiarism in that, because plagiarism checking is very simple today, because you have to just put this entire file into one of the plagiarism software. It will give you like from wherever you copied, it will give you every information like so that is why today it is very, earlier, 20 years back, it used to be like normal cases because there was no plagiarism check. But today it is very, very serious offense actually, because software can tell you like 30 to 40% plagiarism, and they can even, the software can even tell you that from where you copied it. So it will give you the complete reference. So that is why you have to be very careful. So this is one of the major offense. And fabrication, like you get some data and then you, for example, here temperature is something like 50 and then you make it 100 Faraday. So that is called fabrication. That is, these are like we knowingly doing it. Like it's not like unknowingly we are doing it, but we know it. It is 60, but we write it like 100 because we want good result. That is what fabrication. And then there is called falsification. That is like, again, we just want to see some result. We just do some unethical method. This is just a schematic, don't worry about this. So just a schematic to show that how people do the falsification also of the data. So these three, that is plagiarism, fabrication and falsifications, are the real offense in the case of misconduct. So that is why this is one of the most punished misconduct in the case of research field, that is FFP, research misconduct. So then let's see like who are all doing this. It's like, in the last talk I told that this is global disorder now, because a lot of people are doing, today if you look at the misconduct or the research, paper retraction, it is global, phenomenon. Like it's not like only Asians are doing or only Indians are doing. If you look at this, like look at this, USA, it is highest retraction, the percentage of total, about 45% of retraction, and that means if you look at this, So that means, this is, we are giving here the difference between the comparison between error and the misconduct, but in general, the highest number of papers are retracted from in US actually. So next comes the China, because it's not because of the, not because of the country or the region, because they produce more number of papers. Like if you look at globally, US is the one of the country which is producing highest number of publications. That is why they also have the highest number of retraction also. So China is in second one, the second level. So that's why you can also see a lot of retraction in China also. Next comes, we are also in the competition, like we are also publishing a lot of paper. Like every year I think Mangalore University itself publishes around 200 to 300 papers, like if you take all the science field. So we are also in a competition to publish more, but at the same time we are also in a competition to getting retraction more. So that is why if you look at the comparison between error and misconduct, so USA stands, here we are looking at only the error versus misconduct. If you look at this one, so both comes almost together. So that means like there are honest error, equally there are misconduct also, that is intentionally. So honest is unintentionally, but so this one is intentionally. That means almost 50% of the retraction are based on the misconduct. That is very bad. But if you look at other countries like in Germany also look at this level, like the error is less but misconduct is more. So that means more and more people are doing misconduct, that is actual falsification of the data. And Australia, it is reverse, like honest is more and the misconduct is less. So you can see, India also, like we can see, so here also you can see error is less but the misconduct is more. So that is not good. If the error is more, misconduct is less, it's okay. But in all these cases, wherever misconduct is more, so that has to be carefully checked. So, and we are also in a competition in doing misconduct. And this is about the percentage of retraction per annual publication. So this is scary image or scary graph here, because if you look at from 2000 to 2018, it is going like, it is going really fast. Like if you look at this curve, this is really going very fast. That means, of course, it's also largely because we are producing large number of papers compared to 2000. The number of paper published in 2018 are very high. So that is why you can also see large number of retraction, but it is not good, because large number of publication but large number of retraction, this is also not good. So, but it is really going in a very bad situation. So that is why I'm telling, again, what we can do, because it's global, but there should be some solution for this. So that is why I'm coming with some of the case studies where exactly people are punished, and this is also like retraction, that is social science versus sciences. So if you look at medical and health sciences, this is really high, because medical and health sciences are the one of the many people are working in this field, and also it involves large amount of money. Like majority of the funding goes for this medical and health science. So this is like people are in a competition to get this funding. So that's why people make a lot of mistakes and they try to publish more and more with misconduct. So that is why more and more papers are getting retracted in the medical and health science. But this is very dangerous, because this is one of the most important field in our life, not only for all of us. Because if people do something wrong in medical and health science, for example, if you just imagine the vaccination, what we are struggling today, I think there is no difference, isn't it? All of us has to take the vaccination. If the medical science do mistake just for their greediness, if they do something in the medical science, it is going to affect entire population. So that is why this is really scary if you look at the number of retraction, but it is happening. So, but if you look at the natural science is the basic science where we try to understand the basic concept of the, like how we walk, how we run, all those things, and all the basic studies comes from this. But here there is no involvement of any drug discovery or any clinical study, but still there are a lot of retractions. So this is also very dangerous because in the natural science, we propose some hypothesis, and based on the hypothesis, these people do the clinical trial or the drug discovery. So this too goes in parallel. If you make any concept, if you make any mistake in natural science research, like if you propose something wrong concept, so then this will also go wrong because these drugs are developed based on the basic concept what is coming from the natural science. But luckily for the social science, the number of retractions are very less, of course, because social science doesn't involve a lot of money. So that is another thing, because here it involves a lot of money. People want to get the money. Of course, it's not the corruption I'm saying. They want to get more and more money to their lab and for the research. That is why this has more effect. But social science is mostly based on the literature, all those things, reading. So that is why social science have lesser retraction. But engineering and technical part, they also have very less retraction, because at least if they make any mistakes in the physics or technical part, we can see it, isn't it? Like if you develop some instrument or something, if you just say that it works, but we can see it if it doesn't work, all those things. But here it is not the case, because it's everything. If you design some drug, we take it, but the result, if there is any misconduct, if you take any wrong drug, the outcome of that wrong drug, like ingestion, will come only like 10 to 15 years later. So, but here it will be immediate. Like you can see if there are any misconduct, you can immediately see in the engineering and technical part, and humanities also it is very less. At least when we compare social sciences versus sciences, so science people are doing more misconduct compared to the social science. This is largely because of the money. So then let's see like some of the information that is, there are some studies comparing all this retraction. They took all this retraction paper and then they did look at what are the actual reason for this retraction. So this motivation for the retraction. So in some cases, because they also make some questionnaires and give it to different people, and then they check what exactly the reason why people are doing this retraction or the misconduct in the research area. So here the motivations like unknown reason is around 14%, and about errors there are about 10%. It's also very high, that is like they make this falsification or fabrication, that is what we call it as error. So that is about 10%, and the duplicate publishing, that's about 10%, and plagiarism about 8%. So they give a lot of different reasons. So these are the top 15 reasons for the motivation for the retraction or the misconduct, that is errors, duplicate publishing, plagiarism, data falsification, data not reproducible, and self-plagiarism, peer review issues, data fabrication, inconsistency, and ethical issue and authorship. So these are the top 15 reasons for actual misconduct, and also for the research, retraction of the paper. And this is also like, we also look at like, there are also studies to look at the distribution over the countries. So these are the, again, top 15 countries doing this retraction and the misconduct. For example, if you look at USA, so this is like almost like 26%. So USA around 26%. Again, this is again based on the total number of papers published from the USA, because they publish large number of papers, so that is why they get really high percentage. And then comes China. So these are the top, when we say like top 15 here, this is like not good, isn't it? Like when we say top 15, we are happy, but our name also comes like almost like 12th position, like in the number of retractions. So that is not good, because US is always top one, but of course in what we call in retraction also they are leading. That is also, that's not good. And also like distribution over the domains. We already discussed these things, like clinical medicine, that is the highest. Again, it is because of the the funding, and also basic life science. So this is again top 15 domains which are having this retraction process, like starting from clinical medicine and not just the energy, science and the technology. Because in technology we can't make such, blunders in a large quantity because it can be easily caught. So, but in the clinical and basic life sciences, people are doing a lot of misconduct because they are thinking that will not be caught immediately. Because normally, this retraction takes place like after 10 to 15 years. So people do easily like misconduct, then they think that, okay, our job is done. We have published 2 papers and we got the PhD, but after 15 years, you will be in news. If person does this misconduct, that person will be in the news, so but that is not good, isn't it? Like after 10, 15 years, if your name, if someone's name comes in the newspaper for the not the good reason. So this is also retraction by repeat offender authors. Like this is also some comparison, like all authors with with retraction, but authors with the 5 retraction. Like if you can read one, so that is very less. Like after 5 retraction, people also try to, because after 5 retraction, of course, each time they get some punishment, so that's why it goes down. So this is some sort of comparison, like all authors with retraction, authors with 5 retraction, authors with 2 to 5 retraction, authors with 1 retraction, on authors with less than 1 retraction. This is like some comparison. So let's see like the actual problem now, because this is where I think I really want to talk to you people, like what exactly happens here. Because all this tabulation, all this links, it's just for the information, but the actual thing is like if we do misconduct, what is going to happen? So this is, I think, what we need to be very serious and we need to discuss it very seriously. So what exactly happens? This is one of the protocol which we follow, government of India follow, but it is also same in almost in all the countries. So here, these are the people who can report the misconduct. So thing is like there are like there is one paper and other lab will try to, or other group will try to replicate it and it doesn't work. So then what we can do? So we can just go to journal. So we can, these are the people who can actually complain. So you can't just go and complain, not the normal person can go and complain to journal that, okay, someone published that thing and that is not working. But these are the people who can really complain to the journal, that is journal editor, because journal editors will get the first complaint, so they can complain to the journal. And the authors, sometimes authors from another lab, like if the people from the other lab can also complain, sometimes people from the same group can also complain. Because if there are many authors in a paper, if someone feels that there is some fabrication because he or she doesn't want to get caught later, so this is something like a self declaration. So the authors in the papers can also go and complain to the journal. So we found, okay, we published this paper, but we are not able to repeat ourselves in the next set of experiment. So in such cases, the punishment can be really go less if the author themselves complains. So then the reviewers, sometimes reviewers also can complain, because I think I discussed these things in the last talk, that whenever we publish this, normally like in a standard journal, this paper will go to a minimum 3 reviewers. Okay, so this is one of the example I'm giving. So out of 3 reviewers, so 2 reviewers will be not accepting the data and 1 reviewer will be accepting data. But sometimes this editors and the journal editors and the corresponding author will have some sort of connection. What editors will do is he or she will just accept that paper, even though there is objection from the 2 reviewers. Even there is objection from the 1 reviewer also, they are not supposed to accept that paper. So but after some time, like for example, I get lot of paper and so I reject half of the paper, but after some time if I can find the same title, because when I am searching for that in the Google or something, if I can find that title which I reviewed long back and it is published in the same journal, because I already have the records of reviewing, because that's why like whenever we are reviewing something, we also keep the record for each journal and we have all the comments. and I can just check whether these people really did the experiment and whether they really did the answer, really did answer all my questions. As a reviewer, I can complain to the journal saying that, okay, in 2018, I reviewed this paper and I actually commented so many things about this paper, but these comments are not answered in this paper, so you have to retract this paper. So this can also happen. So that is why whenever there is a publication, all the reviewer has to agree. If at least one of the reviewer doesn't agree, so then it cannot be accepted. I mean, if it is like really major comments, if it is minor comments like spelling mistake, all those things, they can neglect it, but editor can take the responsibility to neglect these comments because they can do it. But if there are some suggestion about new experiment by the one of the reviewer, they have to do it. And again, this is not like old time, because now everything is online. People can check this. I can just copy paste this title and put it on the Google. I can see where exactly this paper is published, and I can look at whether they did all the experiment because I have the record. Because this of course very rarely happens because we review at least 30 to 40 papers per year. We don't have time to look at all these things. But if you're really targeting some group, or like if it is a competing lab, you can, because you're always behind that, because this is a competition, isn't it? If two labs are working on the same field, they are always in competition. So they will look at you, this work, and so they'll be always in a competition. So they look at, so it's not about the competition, but the people are not supposed to do mistakes in their work. So reviewers and then the manager, that is journal manager, and the R&D personnel from the institute. This is not only the authors, so I also told there should be research advisory committee or the research investigation officer according to COPE. So there should be a research RIO, that is a research investigation officer in every institute. So if that person finds there is some mistake, and if he gets some complaints about there are some mistake, he can also complain. That is what we call it as R&D personnel. That is, every institute should have this R&D personnel or RIO. And the society, sometimes society also, because if it is really, if there is some major impact on the society of, this also comes for the social studies also, like sometime with the economics, I hope in economics also you can make a lot of misconduct, because if you say that that company is doing great and this company is not doing good, so this will impact the society also, because this is also involved in a lot of economic problems. So these are the people who can actually complain, that is journal editor, authors, reviewers, managers, R&D personnel, and sometimes the society, the people from the society can also. So then they report to the misconduct. So then there will be office from the, there will be institutional committee. So they will look at this case and they will make a committee. So this committee will look at this actual misconduct. So what they will do is, first the committee will ask the authors to present all the data, like all the raw data. So this committee will include eminent persons like the people in that field, and subject specialists, the special people, the subject specialists from that field, and other specialists and legal expert. Because legal expert also need to be there, because you have to decide what punishment can be given, because that's also very important. It's not only for looking at the misconduct, because we also have to look at what level of punishment can be given to the student and also the corresponding author or the boss. I think we are getting a little bit serious now, because we are coming into very serious issue like how all these things happen. So then this committee will investigate, and then they will decide whether there is misconduct in the whole data. They will compare it. It's not like an immediate process. It will take few months to analyze all the raw data, or they will also ask sometime the person to the authors to repeat that experiment in the lab in front of them. The committee will come and stand in front of you, and then they will ask you to repeat those experiments again. If you are not able to repeat that experiment, so they will also record it. So everything is recorded in this committee. So then they will okay, so there is also already, every country will have some sort of misconduct rule book, like okay, if this is the misconduct, then we will punish this way, all those things. So then decision on the case. So no misconduct, If they find, the committee finds there is no misconduct, I mean, if there are only like a honest error like duplication of the images, all those things, what they do is they will ask the people to, the authors to retract the paper, but they will not be punished. So, but still, retraction of a paper is also a big insult for a academician, isn't it? Like, because after 10 years, just imagine one of our paper get retracted, it's also a big insult for us. So they will just make sure that this paper is retracted so that other people will not cite this paper, and then there will be, I mean, no punishment. But next, if it is really like misconduct proven, so then they will appropriate punishment will be given. So the committee will decide what type of punishment is given. So before coming into the punishment, because I think after looking at the punishment, I think some of the case studies, I think will be, I think we'll be really serious. Before that, I'll also tell you like what are the people actually. So far, there are a lot of retraction. So who are the people actually sign this retraction, sign the retraction? Because it's not one step. So there will be retraction. The committee will decide this paper has to be retracted, but this retraction has to come from the journal. So then for this retraction, different people has to be signed. Okay, so then we can look at this. So authors, so all type of retraction, there are 38% of the people, in the 38% cases, the authors have signed the retraction paper. So in FFP, out of that 38, 24% are for the FFP, that is the falsification, fabrication and the plagiarism. So this is very high. So the next case, so if you look at this here, editor, publisher, author, editor, publisher, author, editor. So this is really high, like around 63%, 40%, 55%, 43%. That means in most of these cases, authors are not complaining directly, but journal is actually finding the mistake because of the complaint. But so which is better actually? Because if the authors are complaining themselves, because sometimes mistake can happen in the, in your studies or analysis. In such cases, if you really feel that, okay, there are some mistake in my paper, doesn't matter. You can complain to the journal and that paper can be retracted, but you can avoid the humiliation later. So you may lose one paper, that doesn't matter, because if you publish 10 or 12 or 10 or 20, after retraction, everything is same. Even out of 20, one paper is get retracted, so then people will start doubting all your 20 papers. So then every paper will be investigated if we are using the same method or same type of experiment. So it doesn't matter, so 1 or 20, it's all same. If it is retracted, that is why if authors are really feeling that, of course all of you are like just beginning. I can also see some like a senior, already like 2 to 3 years, working, research scholars here. If after like 3 to 4 years, if you really feel that, okay, there are some mistakes in my paper, you can still do that. Like you can contact the journal. So it will be very simple process. Like you can contact the journal, just say that there was some mistake, and you can also make erratum, like you can also correct it actually. So there are a lot of options, but punishment will be only like everything is crossed, like when we cross all those things, the committee will decide. So this is also another information I want to give it here. That is how long it takes to retract. So this is also very important. So if all cases, so this is in month actually. So normally it is about 32 to 46, like around like 3 to 4 years. You can imagine like the whole process, like from the complaint to the retraction, it takes like 3 to 4 years of time. So that much of investigation will go on, because it's not like you complain and next day they will retract. So they will make the committee, first journal has to decide, and sometimes journal will try to protect yourself or protect themselves, saying that because if there is retraction from a big journal, that's also not good for that journal, because citation will go very badly down. So that is why sometimes journal will also play, because today publication is a business, isn't it? I hope all of you agree, because most of the journal ask for the publication fee and everybody wants to compete. It's not only that students compete with each other with science, it also journals wants to compete, because it's a money, because even I mean, most of the big journal, like you have to subscribe, and each subscription you have to pay a lot of money. So journals are in a competition to make money. Sometimes they also try to make a lot of problem. And then just imagine if one paper is cited like 1,000 times, and one day if they want to retract it, in such cases, journal will also play a lot of lot of ways to protect it. So they will try a lot of ways to protect it so that this paper will not get retracted. Otherwise, the journal will also be criticized for the publishing that, because again, journal is also, I'm coming to that first point, like which we talked in the last session, that is scientific or any publication is a team effort. So the journal is also responsible for any misconduct. So that is why journal will also try to, first of course author will try to escape. So then everything is done, then journal will try to escape from that. So this is something like 3 to 4 years of time. There are like different types of misconduct. So depending upon the type of misconduct, it will take different time. For example, in the case of fraud, that is fabrication, falsification, it takes around 4 years. But in the case of other cases, like it's very less, like around 1.5 years. So these are different types of misconduct and actual time of how long it takes for the retraction. So before coming to the actual case studies, I'll also tell you how we can measure to maintain the research ethics. So this is very important for you people, because since you are doing research in the lab, so this is also very important how to follow, like how we can follow the research ethics. What are the measures we can take to follow the research ethics? And I told you from the last session that never do any mistakes in your experiment, even if your boss is forcing you. Like that is what my suggestion to all the students, because they will escape, okay, because for them they have a big team, they can easily escape, but finally you will be caught. So that is why I can also give you one example where this is a real example. I think people like stories in the afternoon, because one of my MSc students, I think 2 to 3 years back, joined one of the premier institute, and for her PhD, because I suggested her to join that lab, because I was thinking that they are doing really good work, and she joined that lab, and after about 3 to 4 months, she called me like, sir, I want to talk to you. Okay, so I'm talking about just after like 3 months after MSc. So you have to look at the maturity of this girl actually. She called me, and then I told, what do you want to talk? She told, I want to talk about my research. I was thinking like she wants to talk about her experiment, all those things. But then I told, you can come whenever you are free, you can come to my lab. And she came to my lab, and then we discussed, and then she suddenly told like, I don't like PhD. I told, why? Because I had a lot of dreams about PhD. When I was doing MSc, I was thinking PhD is a really great things, but I don't like my PhD. Then I asked, why? So she told, my boss is asking me to manipulate the data. Okay? So at least I was so proud about that girl, because she just finished like 3 months before she finished her MSc, and within 3 months she could at least show some sort of ethics. So I was so happy with that girl, like at least you are looking at, she's not ready to follow the big person's suggestion to manipulate the data. So then then I asked, what you want to do? So she told like, actually you told me to do PhD, you tell me what you want to do. Then I told her like, so if you are not happy, and it's good that within 3 months you started realizing there is something going wrong, and you are responding that, and you can just leave the lab, because it's just a 3 months of research. She's not going to lose anything. She left the lab actually. So this is what I'm saying. So it's not that even after just finishing your masters, also sometimes peoples with high ethics can also avoid these things. If it is like 2 to 3 months or something, you can also leave the lab. I'm not saying that you have to leave your lab, but if you are really ethically concerned about your research work, and if your boss is forcing you to manipulate the data, just forget about that PhD and leave it, because you are going to suffer at the end or later stages. That is what going to happen. So in simple way, what are the measures to maintain research ethics? That is before starting any research, develop clear research plan. So this is what I tell most of the research students today, like you have to read. I mean, you have to read as much as papers in your field. That is why I think we didn't have this coursework, all those things like when we were doing PhD, but today they forcefully make this 1 year of coursework. Why they are doing it? Because you are supposed to read, because reading has gone so low today, because I think we don't have the habits of reading nowadays, because we are busy with our mobile, and because we don't have much time to read. So that is why now they made it like 1 year coursework. It's not because they just want to spoil your 1 year, because this 1 year is more productive. It should be more productive than your actual research, because you are supposed to read and get an idea like what are things happened in that particular field and what are you going to do it. Because if you are not sure what is already happened in that field and what you are going to do it, and you are going to spoil your next 3 years. So that is why develop clear research plan. If possible, submit protocol to the ethical review. If there is ethical issues are involved, submit your protocol to the ethical review, and ethical committee will decide whether that experiment can be done and how it can be done, because ethical committee is also supposed to give some suggestion like how we can improve your research plan. I'm talking only about the scientific research here, but I think in social studies also it is the same actually. And prepare well with your research community and also discussion, because this is another biggest problem we are facing. We are having here, because we don't have open-minded approach, isn't it? Like we don't try to discuss our work with the neighboring lab. The two labs will be working on completely different field. There is no competition between two labs, but still we have some sort of some sort of insecurity in us. So that is why most of the time we don't discuss our research with our neighboring lab. We discuss all other things, but we don't discuss this. But I personally feel you have to discuss these things, because you get more idea. And also if there are some problem with your experiment, you can also get an idea from your neighboring lab. It's not an issue. But I think most of, that's what, with my experience, because most of the Indian labs have this insecurity feeling, and they also force their students. Sometimes the boss will tell their students to not to discuss your research work with others. But actually you're spoiling yourself, isn't it? Because you're losing a lot of new ideas coming from your friends, because that friend from another field, but he or she can also give a lot of ideas for your research. So that is why you have to discuss your result. How long you can keep it inside? One day you have to publish it, isn't it? Once you publish, everybody will know that, what you are doing it. So you can hide your research only for 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 years. After 3 years, you have to publish it. So after 3 years, once it is published, everything is online. People can easily know what experiment you do it. Instead of telling people after 3 years, you can also tell today itself, isn't it? So that you will get a lot of ideas. So that is why I prefer like a lot of scientific discussion, or even if it is social studies, you can have a lot of discussion. You can also have a lot of discussion, not in the campus, you can also have outside. You can discuss your work with people so that you can get idea. Because research is something like, it is not for hiding something, isn't it? It is for doing something for the betterment of the public or this, people. So this work has to be discussed in public. So that is why prepare well with your research community and agree on authorship. This is another big problem. I think I already discussed in my last talk, authorship issues. Like we take help from many people. Sometimes we also promise them that, saying that we will give them authorship, but I think after 2 years of your work, you forget them. Because that person might left your institute, but still there is some contribution from that part. If you already agreed, like before your research, that you are giving authorship to that person, you have to give them the authorship, because otherwise someday this person, if he or she is not, he can also find this research in the public domain, so he or she can complain. So that is also another problem. If you agreed for authorship from the beginning, so you have to give them authorship. So this is what you can do before you start the research, that is during the coursework, what we call it as coursework. Coursework is not only for attending the talk or, I mean, you have to prepare, you have to read, and you have to decide what you're going to do for the next 3 years. That is why coursework is very important. I mean, I hope you know the importance of coursework, because sometimes for teaching position, case set, they ask for case set, net, all those things, but sometimes coursework is also considered in some cases. So that is why coursework is not like a one year of, relaxed time. The 1 year of hard work actually makes your coursework. So you have to attend maximum talks and maximum discussion so you can decide everything. And during the research, that is after the coursework, so you are going to start all your experiments. So during the conduction of research, follow the appropriate protocol. So follow all the published protocol. Don't make your own protocol. Like even if you change the protocol, make sure that what are the changes you are making, because when you are publishing, you have to make sure that you are reporting that, okay, I took the protocol from this paper, but I am making some modification here. So you can also write it down. It is not a problem. In journal, you can just write, okay, this protocol was taken from this paper and with some modification from our lab. So that is okay. As long as you are disclosing things, it is fine. You can also make changes. Gain consent, that is from the ethical committee, and involve the community. That is, you can also involve the community, public. Also, you also involve your friends, like in your research, and discuss continuously and protect yourself, your team, and your participants. Like if it is clinical studies, like you also have to protect the team. They regularly check your data. So this is another important point. So I think this is another problem I normally find with PhD students, like you generate a lot of data and you keep it somewhere and you don't analyze it, because sometimes your first set of experiment is very important for your second set of experiment, but you don't analyze. You just start the second set of experiment without analyzing the first set of experiment. So that is why you have to regularly check your data. So after each set of experiment, you have to analyze and make sure that, okay, this data is proper. If it is not proper, repeat it, and then make sure that everything is done. So then only go for the next set of experiment. So you have to analyze at least. It's not the complete, I'm not talking about the complete making figures, all those things. At least you should have the raw data with some conclusion. Okay, from this experiment I can conclude something like this. If it is not proper, repeat it. And so that is what we are supposed to do during the next 3 years. I think that is what we say, like, or next 2 years. For the full time, that is 1 year of coursework. I think it's 3 years for full time. 3, and for part time it is 4 years, including coursework, isn't it? Or it is excluding coursework? Including? You are in the first year. You have to tell me that. Including? Okay, what about it? So this is for the full time. So you are supposed to do it in next 2 years, and for part time you are supposed to do it in next 3 years. If it is 3 to 4 years. So then after the research, so that is after you finish this experiment, share your study report. So that is like you share your report with your own people in the lab, or you can also talk with your friends and return something back to the research community. This is especially for the clinical studies, where we take a lot of sample or a lot of questionnaires from the public. So in such studies, you should also talk to the public. Okay, because during sometime we do some clinical studies, we also take some sort of questionnaires, like people contact people, and we contact different patients for their experience, or to get some conclusion. In such cases, you are also supposed to return something back to the research community. You are supposed to go to them and tell them, okay, we took data from you and this is what conclusion what we get. So that is what a healthy research is. So you take all the data from people, and if you keep it yourself, and if you don't talk to the people next time when you go, they will not give you any more information. So that is why you have to talk to the society, or talk to the people from where you're getting the data, and follow publication ethics. So that is what we discussed so far, and use reference management software. This is another thing, like after research. So this is measured to maintain the research ethics. And also I will also tell you like how to avoid plagiarism. So keep track of information. That is like you have to read a lot and to get the information, and know how to paraphrase. So I'm not saying that you can't do copy paste. You can do copy paste, but after you copy paste, so you can also rearrange, rephrase the sentence. You can rephrase the sentence according to your limitation, but never copy paste exactly. I mean, sometimes people even copy paste like, sometimes reference also. I mean, this is like really, what I'm saying is really copy paste. It's okay to copy paste because sometimes we don't have much time to write it down, but you have to change entire the paraphrase. Otherwise, so there is one person or this software sitting here that is Turnitin. So this is one of the most powerful plagiarism check. He or she will tell you, okay, you copied this from this particular paper, because you have to check this. I don't know how many of you saw this Turnitin software. You have to look at this report. I mean, so I get some of this report. It will tell you each sentence, like from first paragraph, the first sentence is copied from this paper, second sentence is copied from this paper, everything. So, because your paper might be like a 4-page, but your Turnitin report will be like 50 pages because each sentence will be copied. Of course, sometimes there are some problem with the Turnitin software also because it takes minimum 3 words actually. Minimum 3 words. If there is similarity between minimum 3 words, so it says that it's a plagiarism. But normally it is not like that, isn't it? Like, because 3 words can be copied like anywhere. So, but we can reduce it and proofread and use plagiarism checker. Like before you submit your paper, it is always better to check it, Turnitin. But of course, Turnitin is one of the most expensive plagiarism check software. I think we have it in library. You can also do it there. So before submission of your, not only your thesis, it's also better to check your paper before submission to journal, because once you submit, journal also checks this there for the plagiarism. So sometimes they reject, the editor reject directly because they put your information to the Turnitin, then they find, okay, there are about 30%. Normally it should be below 10%. Even if you write the research paper or the thesis, normally it is, I think now it is around 10% is allowed. But if it is more than that, journal can directly reject your paper. So that is what happens with the journal. So this is one way you can check it. So keep track of information, get the information, know how to paraphrase. Once if you copy paste, make the changes, like make the complete, I mean, when I say copy paste, you are taking only the conclusion from that paper, not the entire paragraph or entire sentence, and proofread and use the plagiarism checker before you submit the. Okay, so now I'll give you some case studies or the consequences of research misconduct. What will happen exactly, like if you are caught or if someone is caught in this research misconduct, there are many things can happen depending upon the type of misconduct. Many things can happen. So the first one is, it could mean that the end of the career as a researcher. Sometimes dismissal from the faculty if the faculty is involved or the entire group is involved. In such cases, the first author can escape because the PhD students might be somewhere in the, because after the investigation, they will come to a conclusion that whether this misconduct is by the first author or it is by the forcefully by the last author, or is it due to some other mistake. So after the investigation, there will be clear cut report whether it is done by first author or the corresponding author. If it is done by the corresponding author, that is if it is done by the boss, saying that if the boss is forcing the students to make manipulation, in such cases the biggest thing is he or she might be dismissed from the faculty position. So that is from one institute. Maybe we think that, okay, we are dismissed from one institute, we can go to another institute. But by that time, this news is already in the newspaper everywhere. So no other institute will hire you. So that is another problem. And the rejection of the research grants. So this is another big problem. If it is, if they find some papers are retracted from one particular lab, so that lab will not be supported by any more fundings. Because all our lab works only because of the funding, because we need large amount of money in the lab. But if there is no research fund, that lab is almost like closed, like all the big lab where we do a lot of molecular biology or larger like clinical studies, all those things. Without money, you can't do it. In such cases, rejection of all the research grants, because it is already there in the news, and all the funding agency will get this news. That is because rejection or retraction is not like every day. It's not like every day come. Like maybe once in a year or once in 6 months you find this news. So this gets spread all over very fast, and also the institute level, and also they will be blacklisted. That is even though it is some reputable research organization, such research organization will be blacklisted because of this retraction, and university refused to hire that person, that faculty, and funding sources refuse to sponsor research work. That is another problem. Journals refuse to consider any article for publication. This is another big problem. I mean, even if you find new position and if you continue a research, none of the journals will accept or take your paper for publication if there is really serious misconduct and if really serious retraction from that lab or from that particular faculty as a corresponding author. It will not be taken. And the fabricators may have previously earned academic achievement taken away, because all the achievements, like sometimes, for example, in this case in 2004, Jan Hendrik Schoen, I mean this is a German name, so Jan Hendrik, who was working in University of Constance, after finding fabrication related research done during, he was like stripped of his doctoral degree. I mean, you can imagine the faculty is stripped of his doctoral degree from the institute. So that is, I think that's end of research career, or I mean, so all this thing can happen sometime. So these are, of course, these are all very serious punishment, but sometime it can go much more. Look at this fellow. His name is Dong Fyon Han. He was a former biomedical scientist at the Iowa State University in US. So what he did is, he was working on the HIV vaccine, and he mixed, like for example, I mean, after the investigation, there were a lot of papers coming from his lab, and they found that there was some sort of mixing of mouse sample with human sample just to show that it is working. I mean, okay, this is HIV vaccine, so we are talking something very serious which is directly related to the public and directly related to the health issues. So he manipulated data and developed a lot of HIV vaccines, and this is really serious offense, because this is going to, I mean, affect a lot of people, I mean, especially the HIV patients and also the public. So that is why he was sentenced for 57 months. So this is very rare cases, but just imagine, like, he was almost sentenced for 5 years. And not only that, so along with that, he was also fined for about US $7.2 million. Okay, so that's whatever he earned during his service, he has to give it back to the government as a fine. I mean, 7.2 million is like 70 lakhs million dollar. So you can into 60, you can make it, I mean, you can count it. And also, they also make sure that after release, after he released, that is after 5 years of imprisonment, once he released, for the next 3 years, he will not be given any academic like power, like he can't guide anyone, he can't get any job. So it's almost like 5 plus 3, that is 8 years of punishment. So this can also happen, like if it is clinical trials or clinical misconduct, such thing can also happen. So this is extreme, isn't it? Like almost 5 years of imprisonment. I'll come to the next one. This is another case study. So his name is Professor Yoshiki Sasai, 52. So he was working in Riken Center of Developmental Biology in Japan. So this is another very strange story. I mean, not story, strange situation. So when he was working in this as a director in Riken Center for Development Biology, so there was a PhD student. So she found something very interesting work. So she found, they were working on the stem cell research. So they found a new method of making a pluripotent stem cells into any tissue. So basically, you can take this pluripotent, this is a stem cell. So you can introduce some chemical, you can make them heart, or you can make heart cells or nervous tissue just based on changing some chemical. So in 2014, 2014 that time, so this was a very big finding, because if you can make artificially or from stem cells, if you can make new heart or new neuron, new tissues, this is really good. So that is why their work got published in two Nature paper. So I'm talking about back-to-back two Nature paper, the PhD student and him as the one of the co-author. He was not the corresponding author. You have to realize, you have to make sure, you have to understand the situation. He was just a co-author. He was not the corresponding author. He was not the first author. And because it's a really big finding and two Nature paper with the 50 impact factor, so people were really happy. Okay, we can cure everything in all the disorder because of the stem cell research. And people jumped into this field, and then they started replicating this experiment, but they were not able to do it. Then of course they complained to the journal. Then there was a very big investigation, because this is going to affect the entire society. And they found guilty, like both the first author found guilty. So here we have to make, so here condition is different, because here the first author was found guilty because she was the girl, she was manipulating all data, and she wanted to make this Nature paper, and she published, and she got some very big position. And this guy, as a co-author, he was found not guilty. So he was, after investigation, the report said that he's just a co-investigator, but he's not guilty in that particular research. So he should be happy, but it gave him a lot of mental pressure, because he was one of the pioneer in the stem cell research, and it was like almost like ethics, isn't it? Like he did almost like 20 to 30 years of research in the field, and suddenly his name comes as the misconduct process, and also people started criticizing him for his just involving himself in that particular paper. Even though he didn't do any experiment, he was not the corresponding author, and it gave him a lot of mental pressure, and he was hospitalized for some time because of the anxiety and depression problem. But unfortunately, he committed suicide. After coming back from the hospital, he committed suicide in the same lab where he was working. So just imagine, so he was punished for, he was not involved in for any misconduct, but the ethics, the integrity, what he showed for 20 years of his work, so he was killed himself in the same department and same lab. So this is like really disaster, because we lost one of the best stem cell researcher. So this also sometimes affect because if they are doing ethically good research, but if the students are doing some mistake to get some, of course, he was criticized for not looking at the data properly, because it was also somewhere he also had some mistake, but it is not directly his mistake, because there was a corresponding author. The boss is supposed to look at, the corresponding author is supposed to look at this thing, and but he was punished for this. He was killed himself, and that is one of the biggest loss for the stem cell research. I'll tell you another funny story here. So this is by another Indian PhD student. His name is Vipul Brigu in 2010. Sorry. So this is another strange story. It's like this girl, she was a PhD student, like her name is Heather Ames. So she was doing some experiment in her lab. None of her experiment was not working. So she was working on cell culture. So she was surprised. Because it's a very simple experiment. She was trying to repeat it, but it was not working. So then what she did is, her boyfriend was working in another lab. Okay, she decided, okay, this is very simple experiment, why it is not working? So she thought, okay, I will do this experiment in my boyfriend's lab, and there it worked in one attempt. So then she was surprised, what is happening? I'm repeating this experiment for several times, but it is not working in my lab, but it is working in neighboring lab. So how it is going to happen? So then she started suspecting some of the lab mates. So then what they did is, like the guide and herself, they put some camera in front of the cell culture incubator. Okay, then they saw this video like CC camera. Then they saw one person coming in the night. You have to just imagine the mentor, how psychic we are. Like this person is coming in the night and putting alcohol on the cell culture so that all the cells will be killed. So next day the person comes and see everything is dead. So that is why this experiment was not happening. But this guy was found guilty, Indian, and of course he was removed immediately. So that is what we call it a fabrication, but sabotage. That is, he was trying to manipulate others' data. So that is why. But why he did that? Because he was doing experiment and his experiment was not working. So he got some sort of anxiety and depression mode, and he was targeting all others' experiment which is working good. So this is another type of, this is just one example. Such things are happening in many labs. Like sometime it could be like maybe you don't like your friend, or sometime also due to the experiment, because this is another problem. Sometimes the boss has to be very careful. If there are 5 people, if one person's experiment is not working, he can't target that person, isn't it? Because sometimes experiment will not work because of the experiment setup also. But sometimes we have this bad habit, like we call the nice, those who are giving a lot of good result, we call them and prize them in front of the other students. We try to humiliate the person who is not getting data. In such cases, such thing can happen. And also this has happened in the US. So you can imagine the person, this guy had so much of mental pressure, so basically he tried to kill others, others' research. That is what happened. So next let's see what is happening between India and China, that is Asian, two giants, two big countries in Asia, that is China and India. Of course, compared to India, the China is producing more papers, and also they have more retraction. You can look at here a percentage of journal in impact. So impact factor, that is about 94. Out of this, about 46% papers got retracted are from the bigger journal, because they always try to get the big journal, and that is why many. So compared to China, so they publish around 1,000. This is about 5 years of retraction, that is about 1,440 papers. Sorry. Number of retracted paper 242, and India it is about 50, and this comparison also due to the number of papers also. But of course in China there are a lot of papers are getting retracted recently. So you know that China is a communist country, so they can bring the next bigger things. So now they are trying to bring another very strict rule against the misconduct. So they are thinking of, Chinese courts call for death penalty for researchers who commits fraud. Since it's China, it is going to happen because they don't care, because it is it's not only about China, because the thing is they are actually in the world globally they are insulted so much because of this retraction, because so many papers are getting retracted. If you go to Google, I think every month you can see new paper retracted news from China. So that is why they are taking it very seriously. Just imagine if they get death penalty. But still, after all these things, we have all these issues, some people got imprisonment and some people are fired from the job, but still we are continuing the misconduct in all the labs, and in some of the labs, sorry, not all the labs, many labs. So this is global, I would call it as a global disorder. We are not going to change it. In some labs who are involved in misconduct, they are going to change it. So finally I would like to bring these pictures back. So just for you people, since you are listening to me, so I would tell you, respect your research, because once you start respecting your research, you can't make mistakes, because you know that the value of your result and the research and integrity, and it's not only yours integrity and also your boss integrity. You can make mistake and you can leave, but at the end your boss will be caught at some point. And after investigation, if you are done, you are also be caught. So have good integrity about your research work. And also ethics, follow all the research ethics, and honesty. It doesn't matter if you don't publish in 3 years, as long as you are not doing any misconduct, but do proper research. And there are always people say that if you have high impact factor paper, you are great. Every paper is important, even if it is small paper, every paper has its own importance as long as you are doing it properly. So don't worry about the impact, citation, all those things. Do proper work, do all the experiment properly, and make sure that you are happy with your work. I think with that, I will stop it here, and I think you can ask me any questions. So I just gave you only few case studies, but if you go to Google, you can find a lot of such studies, number of papers are getting retracted, are increasing. We have to stop at some point. I think that is why I like this workshop. At least before starting your PhD, you should know what is research ethics and what is going to happen later, not only to your boss and also this society. So you have to worry about your society, and because that's from where we are getting the money, the taxpayers' money we are using for our research. It's not we are getting from our home, so we are using the taxpayers' money. So that is why, I also tell you this, I hope I have time, just 2 minutes. So when I was working in Germany, they have I was working in a Max Planck Institute, so every year they have something called Open Day in the institute. So the open day is very, very interesting. It's not like here, the people just come and go. So open day, so any public can come to your institute. They can check, they can enter every room, including director's room. So that day there is no director, no research, nothing. Publics can enter any room. Of course, there will be security, so they can enter any room. They can check any experiment. They can ask any type of questions because at the end, we are using public money. You have to remember that, because even though we say that, we get money from, because we are getting money for our work, all those things, but I think for research, you are taking money from public. So we have to give something back to the public. So that is why they do this open day, and people come and ask. So sometimes the questions are so straightforward, because Germans are they will talk straight to your face. They don't care about your, no concern. They'll just ask, what stupid experiment you are doing? What benefit I'm getting? They'll directly ask. One way is good, because public should be aware how this money is used in research, so that they can understand. Maybe they are not understanding the result, all those things, but at least they should know why their money is used for the research. Otherwise, we will waste a lot of money. Of course, we are wasting a lot of money. That is, I think here we don't worry much about that, because we are wasting a lot of money. But at least there should be some sort of honesty and integrity when we are using as a PhD student, because you are the responsible people, and you are the responsible people for the next, I think, next generation, I don't say next generation, next responsible population in the society. So you have to be have the good integrity and honesty with your work, and I think that will make you great personality in future. So I hope I could convince you people not to do research misconduct with my 2 days of 2 talks. So thank you.
What ethical issues should I consider when collecting new data from online?
What ethical issue?
Should I consider from collecting new data from online?
What do you mean by new data from online? Because it is already published in some papers, no?
Then sir, what ethical issues should I consider from? I use for my research work.
No. As long as you are acknowledging, as long as you say that this data is collected from that particular website or particular, domain, it is fine. Because you also need to ask the permission. Because sometimes you also need to ask the permission from that particular domain before you data. I mean, I don't know what type of data you're talking, but normally you're supposed to take permission from that domain or that particular association or particular. You can't directly use their data without permission because they can, anytime they can complain against you.
Fine.
If it is like really there in the public domain, you have to take the permission.
Sir, when I begin developing my research, what ethical issues should I consider first?
Don't do misconduct, that's all I think. As long as you have like, I think the first thing is honesty. You know? Like as long as if you are honest with your work, I think you will not do any mistakes. So make sure that you are not making any copy paste, you are not making any because there are two things. One is intentionally, sometimes accidentally. The accident thing can be, I mean, how you call it? It can be solved, but sometimes people do it intentionally. They know that while taking data, while analyzing all this process, they know that they are doing mistakes. They are doing mistakes. So in such cases, you have to be very careful. But if it is unintentional, it is fine because the committee can say that, okay, this person did some misconduct, but it was not his mistake. So that is what is reported, like most of the cases.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So as long as you are doing intentionally, that is not good because you are going against your ethics, isn't it? I think this is a problem like when we have talk in the evening, like last talk, it's always difficult because I think you're already tired of listening so many. Tomorrow is last days. Any questions? I mean, you can also contact me because I'm always available in the institute. Like we work almost 6 days, at least 9:30 to 6 o'clock in the lab, so you can always come. So I'm not a faculty again, so I'm not a faculty, so I come here as a research scientist. So because I mean, this program is something called re-entry program. So I was working outside the country, so the government of India started like around 10 years back this program, like they want to bring people from outside to start their own research in India, and they give a lot of money. So we get good salary and a lot of money for the lab facilities. So their idea is we have to come back and because they want us to come back and then start things. I mean, start motivating young generation in this country and do good science and so that is why when I was asked to give research ethics, I was so happy to give this talk because I think this is where we have to start our research, isn't it? Because if we don't have research ethics, I think we are done. We are not doing good research anymore. So you can always come to my office and can have discussion. I think most of you are from the campus, so you can always meet me. So I'm available in neurogenetics lab, I mean Department of Applied Zoology. So I meet these people always. So I think the next program person is waiting. Now you can, if you want. Okay. If there are no more questions, I wish you all the best and do great research, and I hope to see you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good evening friends. So I am faculty of sociology. Here is a small announcement. There are two announcements for tomorrow's program. Till today, you had a classes from 10 to 4 or 5, isn't it? 3:30 or 5. But tomorrow your schedule will change. It begins at 9 o'clock. Please don't miss. You come. And anyhow, tomorrow you are last day. You are going to end the program now by 2:30. So that's why requesting you to come little early, before 9:30. Isn't it? 9:30 you come, and we will leave you early. By 1:30 we will leave you. So don't miss, you come before 9:30. We don't tell you that program. Tomorrow there is a program in connections to your program only. So that's why you will enjoy. If you come little early, at around half an hour early, you will have some other program. New speaker is coming. So that speech also you will going to enjoy. Please come, don't miss. And we'll all expecting you to come by 9 or before 9:30. Sorry, 9. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing a valuable information with us. Your session will be surely remain closely to our hearts. Now I call upon Sister Prima for formally showing our gratitude.
Good evening to all. Thanksgiving is a time of togetherness and gratitude. With this beautiful thought, on behalf of the Department of Education, I am here before you to express words of gratitude for the success of today's workshop. First and foremost, I thank God for being with us and assisting in all the activities and brought this day's event to the great end. Words are powerless to express my gratitude to respected and most distinguished chief guest of the day, Dr. Shyam Prasad VR, for gracing today's workshop. You have given us broad knowledge on publication ethics, publication misconduct and violation of publication of ethics, and measures to maintain research ethics, how to avoid plagiarism and consequences of research misconduct. Thank you, sir, for your very thought-provoking and knowledgeable address. As a sign of gratitude, I request Mrs. Lamy, Lecturer of Department of Education, to offer a flower to Sir Dr. Shyam Prasad VR. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir. I am also grateful to the Dr. Suresh Jange and Dr. Savitri, speakers of morning session, for an excellent presentation and making today's workshop a meaningful and interesting one by a valuable presence. My sincere thanks to the coordinator of Department of Education, Dr. Chidanand, for organizing meaningful workshop, and also entire teaching and non-teaching faculty for your support to make this event a successful one. We shall strongly encourage all. You all have been wonderful participants. Thank you for your active participation, and your presence helped this event a great success. My gratitude to all the organizing team of MEd students who rendered selfless service to execute this event by taking different responsibilities. Thank you for your volunteer service. I would like to thank you for the media person who has recorded today's event, and also Mr. Raman and Mr. Rajesh Shetty for serving us refreshment, and all those who have helped us in various ways. Special thanks to resource scholar Mr. Nagaraj for your technical assistance today as well as yesterday. Thank you, sir. Once again, I thank for all your cordial cooperation. I truly appreciate you and your time spent over here. We look forward for your presence tomorrow sharp at 9. Have a pleasant evening.